This is Behind the Mic with AudioFile magazine. I'm Jo Reed, and we're rounding out our Best of the Year audiobooks by asking some of our contributors for their ideas for holiday gift giving. Which audiobook makes the top of their lists? So today I'm talking with Ellen Quint. Ellen writes reviews and articles on mystery and suspense audiobooks, and she interviews authors including S.A. Cosby and David Baldacci. And she also writes mysteries. Her latest short story appears in the anthology New York State of Crime. Ellen, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Very excited to be doing this.
So I'm assuming it's not going to be a reach that the audiobook you are going to give will be a mystery.
You got it.
Okay, and what one is it?
My choice is A Death in Cornwall by Daniel Silva, narrated by one of my favorite narrators, golden voice Edoardo Ballerini.
Oh, I love Eduardo. Yes, so tell us about this one.
So, this is the 24th addition to the series. But for those who are new to the series, there's enough backstory on the characters and their relationships that listeners can basically step right in. Although, with a warning that they may find themselves hooked and wanting to go back to book number one.
Well, actually, I am listening even as we speak to A Death in Cornwall, and I absolutely can attest to that because it's my first Gabriel Allon book, and I'm fine. I know exactly where I am in it. I don't feel like I've walked into something in the middle.
That's terrific. I hope you're enjoying it.
I am. So why don't you tell me a little bit about A Death in Cornwall?
So, in this book, we find Gabriel alone in London. He is now the retired chief of Israeli intelligence. So he is living the good life with his beautiful wife, Kiara, and their two twins. They're twins in Vienna. But he gets a call from a colleague from way back, from early in the books, to come help investigate a murder in Cornwall, in England. I'm not going to say too much more because I do not want to include any spoilers. But once he gets that call, we're kind of off to the races.
Well, I am so impressed by Eduardo's narration of this book. It is
Mm.
spectacular.
He is particularly well suited for this book because Gabriel Allon goes all over Europe, and Ballerini is so skilled at delivering multiple kinds of accents from all over the country, all over the world, I guess, but particularly around Europe.
And the way he can get into characters, and he's as good in the narrative voice, which I find
Mhm.
often can be difficult, as he is with characterization.
That is so true. And he is particularly skilled at something that a lot of narrators struggle with, which is to do male voices as well as female voices. So somehow he's able to differentiate multiple female voices as well as the male voices. And he occasionally has to voice the children, Alone's children. And somehow he has mastered all of that.
So why don't we hear a little? I know you have an excerpt. Can you set this up for us?
Yes, absolutely. In this clip, which is early in the book, we'll listen to how Ballerini seamlessly voices a dialogue between Gabriel Allon and his wife Chiara, who's Italian. And even more so, if you're listening, you can hear how Daniel Silva, the author, so geniusly slips in the backstory. So it all kind of flows. Let's listen.
Okay, great. So this is A Death in Cornwall, Gabriel Allon, Book 24. It's by Daniel Silva and narrated by Edoardo Ballerini.
Where do you suppose she got the story? It certainly wasn't me, said Gabriel. I never speak to reporters. Unless it suits your purposes, of course. Chiara gave his hand a gentle squeeze. It's all right, darling. You're entitled to a little recognition after toiling in anonymity all these years. Gabriel's enormous body of work included paintings by Bellini, Titian, Tintoretto, Veronese, Caravaggio, Canaletto, Rembrandt, Rubens, and Anthony van Dyck, all while serving as an undercover operative of Israel's vaunted secret intelligence service. Isherwood Fine Arts had been complicit in his decades-long deception. Now, having officially retired from the intelligence trade, he was the director of the paintings department at the Tiepolo Restoration Company, the most prominent such enterprise in Venice. Chiara was the firm's general manager, which meant that, For all intents and purposes, Gabriel worked for his wife.
That voice, I mean, effortlessly moving from accent to accent, and I love the way he does characterize a man's voice, and
Mhm.
it's a suggestion of a woman's voice. He
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
high pitch and mimic. He's really masterful.
That's really the key in doing the women's voices that don't seem over exaggerated or too high pitched. And he has that down pat. Honestly, one other thing about Ballerini, I could listen to him read a list of like the painters from all over Europe, just reading the names. I mean, I just could listen to that all day.
His voice, his accents are beautiful, really, oh, yes. I mean, it's addictive listening. My dog has had some very, very long walks since I started listening to this book.
That's exactly how I feel. It's a brilliant way to escape, and I find myself looking for closets to clean just so I could keep listening and volunteering to do the dishes just so I could keep listening.
Exactly. I love listening when I'm cooking, when I'm walking, as I said, when I'm out with the dog, just, putzing around. It's the perfect book. Okay, that was A Death in Cornwall. It's by Daniel Silva, narrated by Edoardo Ballerini, and a wonderful, wonderful suggestion. Ellen Quint, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Joe. Happy holidays to you and all of our listeners.
Oh, happy holidays to you as well, and thank you. Today's episode of Behind the Mic is brought to you by Pay the Piper, a terrifying supernatural horror set in a Louisiana bayou. It's narrated by Sophie Amos, and it's written by legendary director George Romero and author Daniel Kraus. Audible says it's one of the best of the year. That's Pay the Piper. You've been listening to Behind the Mic with AudioFile Magazine. I'm Jo Reed, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.